Hi, my name is Carol Williams, and I'm here with you tonight on the Veterans Issues, the weekly rotation series here on CAN TV in Chicago. We're happy to be here with you tonight, and we're going to talk a little bit about the nonprofit organization that I'm representing. That's the United States Veterans Arts Program. What our mission is to increase the representation of veterans in the arts community, and we do that by a couple of different things, one of which is to do a CAN TV show once a month and talk about veterans who are artists who are in Chicago doing artistic projects or artistic activities. And another thing that we do is to donate resources, we call them artistic tools, to veterans who have an artistic vision, have not been able to complete that, and who need some support in the way of actual resources, tools, meaning musical instruments, cameras, art supplies. We even offer a scholarship here to go to classes at CAN TV where they teach you how to do production, television production, learn about how to do things here at CAN TV, which has been wonderful for us. So we try to do a lot of things. We work with the VA. We have done events at the VA. The VA also has some opportunities for arts there at the VA hospitals. If you are a veteran who gets care at a VA hospital, you should check out the recreation therapy department at any VA hospital. They have recreation therapy, which, believe it or not, recreation is an art. They have music therapists, most of the VA hospitals do, and also art therapy. Oddly enough, once a year they have a festival, and this is the information for the creative arts people at the VA. They have an arts festival once a year where they bring people to show what they've been doing. That's the information for their arts festival if you want to get in touch with them. We are also on the internet, and I'm going to show you our website information and our contact information. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you about our guest tonight. Is a young woman, I would call her. Her name is Iris Feliciano, and she is a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps. She is going to talk about writing, which is one of the most important artistic tools I think that a person could possibly possess. She is a member of the Warrior Writers Project. She's going to tell you about that. She is going to tell you a little bit about herself. We've got some pictures of her and some of the things that she's done. We're going to tell you a little bit about the organizations that she represents, and then she's going to read some of her work. And hopefully will encourage some of you listeners to get involved with either their organization or any organization that you feel enhances your ability to express yourself. It doesn't have to be about your military service if you're a veteran. It doesn't have to be about anything political. It just has to be all about you and how you feel and what you have to say. And the reason being is because people need to hear it. I'm going to show you our website information, and we are United States Veterans Art Program at www.usvap.org. This is our email address. Admin at usvap.org. If you'd like to give us a call, that would be great. But otherwise, we're just going to bring in Iris, and it's good to meet you, Iris. This is Iris Feliciano, and she's going to tell you a little bit about how she got to be in Chicago working with the Warrior Writers Project.
Hi, Carol. Well, I got introduced to Warrior Writers Chicago about less than a year ago. I was talking to some other individuals involved with the Iraq Veterans Against the War, and at the time I was just kind of asking about their views, their politics, and got to know some of the individuals in that group, and they were really helpful for me to try to kind of piece together some questions I had myself about my own military service, about the politics of the current wars, and through that channel I met some individuals that were also hosting writing workshops. Most of them were members of Iraq Veterans Against the War, IVAW. But the writing workshops weren't necessarily just about politics or resistance art, but about the veterans and their own experiences. And in spite of the name Warrior Writers, they're actually not just writers. They're a group of artists, which is really nice.
Great. Are you a member of Iraq Veterans Against the War?
I am, yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about that organization if you'd like to?
I really can't, actually. I'm not a very active member. I have participated with them in some recent, last Memorial Day, and kind of speaking about the redeployment of traumatized troops. And during my day job, I work with veterans also, and I get to see how a lot of veterans are struggling, whether it's with employment or with their families or with other issues that they're still trying to grapple with as a consequence of their participation in war. And so that made me really question and critically look at the policies of war and what it does to families and individuals. And
well, you were in the Marines for quite a while. How did you end up in the Marine Corps?
well, I am originally from Chicago, and I went away to college for a year. From the inner city, I was, going
Humboldt Park.
Humboldt Park. I went far and away to Valparaiso, Indiana, a whole hour away from Chicago. And at the end of a year, I ran out of funds and scholarships and came back to Chicago to work. And I had the opportunity to get my college paid for. I didn't really know what that meant or understood what what all of that entailed, but I decided to join the military. And once I was in, I started to grow and learn, and I enjoyed it, so I stuck around for a little while.
And your job in the Marine Corps was something about communications?
Yes, I was a communications specialist, and the trick was, when I went to college before joining the Marine Corps, I was studying media communications. And so when I talked to the recruiter, I said, I want to be in communications. And I thought I'd be writing maybe press releases or something to do with that.
Or being on TV
Or
like
being on
we
TV.
are.
Instead, he gave me some cables and a shovel and said, dig these cables and then run. And so I pretty much did. I was like an AT&T switchboard operator, cable runner.
Sounds a little bit familiar there when they tell you that you'll be doing something that, and you expect that it has something to do with your background. I know we had an artist on the show a couple of months ago, and he told them that he was an artist and wanted to do art, so they put him in artillery.
Oh, that's close enough, isn't it?
Well, we do have a photo here of Iris that I think is fun to see people in their previous lives here. I think that that's just something that is a good thing to see, and I know that everybody who has been in the service probably has a photo like this, and maybe even a photo like this somewhere. If you kept any of your good stuff, you'll have a few photos like that. That's Iris Feliciano. Iris was in the Marines for 10 years, and then she finished her degree in the service in media and communications. Is that true?
I finished shortly after. I started taking college classes while I was still in, but it was one class at a time, in between deployments, online, and once I got back to Chicago, I finished my undergraduate degree.
Well, where were you deployed?
Well, in the beginning, it was just training exercises, and I'd go to Hawaii and Korea and Japan, and after 9/11, I was deployed. Actually, January of 2002, I was deployed to the region. I did not go to Afghanistan, but I went in support of operations in Afghanistan. I was in Bahrain.
Near where Afghanistan?
Yes.
Then you came back home and you went back to school, and you pursued this idea of writing that somehow had inspired you while you were in the service. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, indeed. I like to say that I've been writing really bad poetry since I was 7 years old. So as a kid, I'd drag my mother around the city to drop me off at different writing workshops and different events. And even while I was in the military, I did a little bit of writing, just journaling and poetry. And the first time I saw my name in print was actually in the military. I won a writing award at one of the sergeant's courses, and they published it in their sergeant's course workbook. And so after returning home, I just gathered all my journals and writings and started to write a little bit more, some more poetry, some short stories.
You know, when you told me that story about seeing your name in print, I thought it was more of a instruction manual that you were being appeared in. I didn't remember that it was a competition and that you'd won something. We are a live hotline call-in show. If you have a question or a comment on what we're talking about today, the number is there on your screen, 312-738-1060. We're going to show you a book about that has been published that it might not show up on your screen quite as well. This is called Warrior Writers, Remaking Sense. And this is something that is sponsored and published and released by the Warrior Writers Workshop that Iris has been involved with for the past year. We also have some more photos, and Iris is going to read, hopefully not some of the really bad poetry from when she was 7 years old, but she has work that she has brought to share with us, and also some of your workshops you have talked about on Facebook, which is where I saw you.
Yes.
How often do you have a workshop?
Well, before the holidays this year, we were meeting pretty regularly, I would say about once a month. And then we had a big project in October, November, where the Warrior Writers and other artists presented some of their work at an international conference on art in response to violence. And after that, we kind of took a little bit of a hiatus, and we started back up this February and are working on a couple more projects this year.
And this organization that you've been active with is a national organization, is that correct?
Yes, it is. Warrior Writers Project is a national organization, and they're headquartered in the East Coast. But then we also have the Warrior Writers Chicago chapter.
How many chapters are there? Do you have any idea?
I'm not really sure. I know they're in New York and Philadelphia, Chicago, but I'm not really sure.
I'm going to show you their contact information. If you'd like to make note of that, zoom that in a little bit. I think that's as zoomed in as you can get. Warrior Writers Chicago, and this is warriorwriters.org, or if you want to email them, warriorwriters@gmail.com. We have a caller. Caller, do you have a comment or a question about what we're talking about, or for Iris? Caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
Hello.
Go ahead.
I was in Vietnam in 1967. I got shot. Then I came on a police department, and Veterans Administration said because I never went on a medical, I can't get any disability pension. Is that true?
Well, actually, I'm not sure that I can answer your VA disability claim questions. The best thing to do, of course, if you're near a computer, is to log on to the VA. I know that there are attorney groups that handle claims for veterans who want to secondarily pursue that. We hope you can follow through with that. And once you do become involved with one of the veterans VA medical centers, it would be great if you could contact the recreation therapy department and see if they have anything to offer you in that regard. And good luck to you, especially as a Chicago police officer. We have another caller. Do you have a question about what we're talking about tonight, or veterans in the arts?
No, it's for the Warrior Writers, and I'm looking for their meeting locations, times, and dates, and basically if they actually publish as a group, or if there's individual, like one-on-one counseling, look at your work, tell you the promise of your work, or anything in that area.
Sort of critiquing?
Yes, yes.
Well, the good news is this year, like I said, we've been working on a lot of new projects here in the Chicago area. We've got a small group of the Warrior Writers members that are working on a collaboration with a Rogers Park community art space, and we'll be hosting some more workshops out there in Rogers Park. The main office where we meet at is in Logan Square. If you email us at the warriorwriterschicago@gmail.com, someone will be able to get in touch with you with our location and times. We usually just email it out to our distribution list or to friends that we know are interested. But please definitely email us and we can let you know about our next projects.
Do you have a Facebook account?
I do have a Facebook account.
Does the caller have a Facebook account?
I do as well, and I'm also a Marine.
Oh, well, Semper Fi.
But do you have a Facebook account, caller?
Do or die.
You do?
Yes, I do.
Well, you can get in touch with this group through Facebook. Is that the case?
Yes.
Yes. That's how I got in touch with Iris. So if you go onto Facebook, then you'll get automatic event postings from that source. That's a very friendly source, obviously. And I'm going to give you the overhead one more time, just in case you need to write that down. That's the warriorwriters.org.
Right, I have that.
Great, warriorwriters@gmail.com. And I have a feeling that you will get an instant response.
Now, on the artistic note of this, with the art projects that you do you have anything that deals with music as well?
Well, we do. I'm assuming that you're talking to me, or are you talking to Iris for the Warrior Writers workshop?
The first part was Iris. Thank you, Iris.
Sure.
And the second part, because what I'm doing is I'm trying to get my poetry basically finished, but I don't want to do somewhat of a book. I would like to at least infuse some sort of music with it. And so with local artists or anything, it would be better if there's already established people who knew how to write music, or just contacts that I can use within an artistic veteran community.
Well, it's probably a question that's been brought up before, because poetry and music do get along pretty well. Sometimes they even make a song. So when you email this source, do definitely ask about that, and remind Iris that you're asking about the music background as well. Speaking of, we're going to have Iris is going to read some of her poetry. If you're going to call, we'll be very happy to take your call. We're going to do some reading here, and then while she's doing that, I've got one photo that I wanted to get ready, and now we're ready. This is Iris Feliciano from Chicago.
Hi. I'm going to read you a short poem that I wrote during one of the Warrior Writers workshops, and the prompt was to write a poem, a 9-line poem called a nonet, where the first line contains 9 syllables, the second line contains 8 syllables, and so on until the last line contains only 1 syllable. And the inspiration behind the poem was the prompt, "Life does not have a title." And what I thought about as I wrote this was that sometimes war trauma or other types of trauma don't have a title, or they may be misdiagnosed, or simply they haven't been named yet, as in with PTSD, which didn't have a title during the Vietnam era yet.
Or MST.
And because of those unnamed wounds, sometimes they go untreated or they don't get the proper treatment. And so that's what kind of inspired this poem. It's called Balm. The shallow eyes of a sleepless face hide pain carved in a twisted smile, poisoned by a putrid heart, wounds lacking proper names or proper solace. The scars remain, broken souls needing balm.
So wounds lacking proper names is the line that I really heard. Wounds lacking proper names, because there's nothing better than having your diagnosis. I mean, I'm in the medical profession, and people come in because they want a diagnosis. No one wants to feel that there's something wrong that no one has ever heard of before, no one would believe, and no one would respect, and no one would be able to treat. So when you say wounds lacking proper names, that's something that we should think of, applies to so very many of us. Do you have something else? And when you say a nonet, I've never heard of a nonet before.
I had to look it up myself, but it's a 9-line poem and it's got some guidelines. It was a lot of fun trying to put it all together, actually.
It's challenging when they give you that much structure.
They're not always that structured, but this is another poem. It actually comes in 2 parts, and it wasn't written in the workshop, but it did come from one of the prompts in the workshop. And essentially, I'm talking about the view or the perspective of someone either on the ship about to approach the shore, coming home from a deployment, and also the perspective of those waiting on the shore, waiting for the ship to approach, because I have been on both sides, the person at home waiting and the person waiting to get home.
The photo that I'm going to show is something that Iris took, and hopefully we can get a good look at that. And that's a photograph that you took yourself.
Mm-hmm.
She is a photographer at heart also. And where is this?
That is actually off the coast of California. They were coming back home, actually.
From
I think it was a training exercise.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't necessarily a deployment. But
Mm-hmm. And were you on a ship like this going out also?
I was not on a ship like that going out. I flew out
You
of
flew.
the country,
Okay.
which is great.
So ships can be flying ships or floating ships. So we're going to hear about this next piece, about that perspective.
It is untitled in 2 parts. In part 1, From the Shore. From across the water they look like toy soldiers in their blue and red aisles, brass shining in the sun. Tiny hand-carved, faceless boys, at least from here. But I know they are really not faceless. In fact, they're not even all boys. Indeed, their journey has not been child's play. But from here you can't see the sunken eyes from months of restless night at sea. You can't see the fine sands still whirling at their feet. You can't see the clenching jaws or the deep creases around their lips as they swallow the words they've been dying to say for months. I'm home at last. In part 2, From the Ship. From across the water they look like toy soldiers, exploded from a toy box, disordered and scattered along the pier, with their blue hats and red flags and faceless, at least from here. But I hope they are not all really faceless, and I scan the mob for a familiar sign. But from here, you can't see the eyes sunken from months of sleepless nights. You don't see the smiles and the tears. From here, you can't make out the words they mouth, words you've been dying to hear for months. You're home at last. But from here, you really can't see.
That is truly wonderful. I hope that someone who is reading or is listening to your words would feel very much that they'd like to write words of their own, which is what we're all about in the end. We don't have a caller at this point, right? Which is fine, because I wanted to tell you a little bit more about what Iris does in her spare time. She is very involved with several organizations, and I know we're just about out of time. Here she is with her, looks like her Marine Honor Guard behind her, speaking at Northeastern Illinois University. This is another view of her. Sorry about the shine. Talking about veterans things. This is a bench that they donated at Northeastern Illinois University, where Iris is working on her political science degree. We'd like to thank you for coming to the show as our guest, Iris. Thank you so very much. Check out the Warrior Writers Project, or any type of involvement that you might feel that makes sense to you as a veteran.